Let me tell you a secret on how to enjoy any media out there. In this case, for video games, inhabiting context. Us godly gamers of the year of the Lord 2024 are gifted with hindsight that we tend to use either conveniently or subconsciously to discount the grades that you see in countless Reddit threads and Twitter discourse scattered all throughout. As we turn into rabid fans that all of us can be, the natural process of ignoring the classics occur. Because to put you into perspective, 2007 is a hell of a different time than what we currently stand on business today. With all the game mechanics we take for granted now, there was once a time that this was the new ground that sparked something new to the aunts and unks out there that took the plunge in seeing if Irrational's Rational Classic is truly worth all the talk it was getting at the time. And now that I have finished the classic that is the first Bioshock, I can truly say that yes, you should play the first Bioshock even in 2024. This is a certified yapping session entailing my dive in Ken Levine's masterpiece that's a guaranteed recommendation for all of you looking to play something new, and a mix of personal input and stories regarding the game I'm covering, as part of my never ending quest in vanquishing my gaming backlog. So, would you kindly strap in and let's sink and swim onwards to discovering Bioshock? Now, just what in the hell is Bioshock anyway, you ask? Well, if you're somewhat active on the gaming hemisphere, just because, you might have heard of another game that has a shock on the title, System Shock 2. It is within the same Hall of Fame as Bioshock that boasts the same first-person perspective. But what differs both is how the game reacts to you. First-person shooters has a subgenre called immersive sims, and while it is not exclusive to being a first-person only genre, it is synonymous with it. System Shock 2 is a staple for that subgenre by perfecting the formula of open-ended player agency that, on paper, looks like you're going to point A to point B. But imagine the lines connecting the said points are multi-layered and have a tendency to knot itself tightly. And I gotta say, Bioshock doesn't fall in the same category. Well, sure, you can expect open-ended areas in the latter that are beautifully made, mind you, collect loot scattered in the said levels, and explore unmarked nook and crannies. But it has been a contention of the community as to whether or not we're going to put this shooter in the same realm as System Shock, Thief, and Deus Ex, all of which are born and molded in the ImSim formula. Immersive sim talk aside, both games that have a shocking title are closer to the chest in another aspect, as it is both Ken Levine's masterpieces, which are kinda a decade apart. Now, I remember back then that in the talks of them Halos and Call of Duties and even Mario's Galaxy 2, there was a name that keep on popping up that has a somewhat intriguing box art that, being a scaredy little child, was easy to ignore. And I went on being enamored with the best military shooter at the time instead. Ever since that time when I was growing with the games industry, Bioshock has been a constant name when it's the talk about must plays and classics. There has been two Bioshock games since then. One is a huge leak apparently. And I still haven't succumbed to finding out the hype for myself just because, every year it seemed like there's a new hot to go game to play. And you've probably found out by now that I just recently overcame my interest in playing horror games through this game. So the prospect of playing that game that has a huge ass scary hunk of metal in the depths of the sea was not a prospect I'm all in yet. As with the life of man, change is inevitable, and having a deal that included all of the Bioshock games in one $5 solution, it was a no-brainer, as I took it as a sign from the sea to finally kickstart my vacation down under. I bought the Bioshock collection for a steal price that made me feel like I was going to take all that I can carry.
Sure, take what you can carry.
And I have to say, if you enjoy these types of games, even without knowing anything about Bioshock, go ahead and buy the collection on sale because it's very valuable. Well, except the remastered versions of both Bioshock 1 and 2, which I will be entailing to you later in this video. Right, so after a quick install, because these games are not Black Ops 6 in
Wait a minute,
size,
what the hell?
I told myself, would you kindly run Bioshock Remastered? And lo and behold, you're greeted with one of the most aesthetically sound menu screens to exist. The charm of the quirky UI sounds became apparent to me as I head on to play the first game I bought for my first proper gaming machine 4 years ago. Which you shouldn't be that excited in playing older games because one thing that you have to remind yourself is to check the options thoroughly because it was a hell to find out how the past generations played PC games. Because the keybinds are very confusing for someone who's revisiting the classics. Well, now I became the type of guy to definitely rebind keys to have every game I play in the present and future be consistent, so I wouldn't be taken out of the experience numerous times in a playthrough. And I'd like to think it all started when I found out that default keys for crouching in this game is C, the iron sights for certain weapons is Z, and the right mouse button is for switching your cool powers and guns. Now, that's a bit of a culture shock for me, and I'm still a stranger to very weird control layouts. Luckily, they are easily swappable to whatever you want. The game is also a pioneer of the 7th generation consoles, so a gamepad will work wonders with this. All that talk of keybinds ain't it yet, as you'll only need the movement keys for your first taste of what I think is the true main character of Bioshock's story. And would you kindly be ready for the grand reveal
Would you
of
kindly
the
get this? Would you kindly
underwater
find that? Would you
utopia
kindly
that
find
is Rapture? I know that the game is 17 years old as of making this video, but what makes an entertainment piece timeless is art design. Granted, Irrational Games pulled out all the stops in ensuring this is one of the best looking sequences in the game graphically. But what you're seeing is a mix of Dieselpunk and decorative art excellence. Well, I'm not well versed in anything that came from the roaring 20s up to the 50s, but somehow a video game made me aware of an unknown aesthetic that is bound to be appreciated by everyone on how fitting it is for a narrative that is essentially about venturing to the unknown. This mixed with the sounds that are adjacent to the time period and thematic cues made up for a very unique experience that always fueled the curiosity. And that ride, looking at the grand scale of Rapture, was indeed exhilarating. It's all short lived, however, as everything turns to the shits with your initial encounter of the lovely inhabitants of this bleak utopia, setting the tone quickly. As it turns out, there's no 5-star service welcoming you here, as the overall vibe right as you get out of the bathysphere is not looking hot, Chief. If you're going to pull out a source of media that just nails the atmosphere, it's this game. It is a consistent affair all throughout your 14 to 18-hour journey inside of the fucked up locales Rapture brings. Along with it are a colorful set of misfits that are affected by the insanity filled substance called Atom, with it being the main narrative piece that influences most of the things that you will be experiencing with this game.
And let's just insert this very sus thing in our body. Just like that. Without any thought.
Your genetic code is being rewritten. Just hold on and everything will be fine.
Didn't you say that? Most of the time.
Well, maybe it's a stretch, but there's something about Fallout's world that always felt like it could fit alongside Bioshock's haunting dystopia. And, it's not just the music choice, mind you. Both games lock you in an eerie, decaying world filled with desperate, unhinged characters wielding all kinds of bizarre weapons. Though, Fallout uses satire to explore its wasteland, it still brings out the same desolation I find in Bioshock's Rapture, a city built on ambition turned nightmare. While Fallout often goes for dark humor, Bioshock keeps you in the tense space where horror and humanity mix, tapping into something far creepier, pushing past the uncanny and straight into the unsettling. Playing both made me feel like these worlds aren't just empty ruins. They're living, breathing places of dread, each in their own way. This is definitely not on the same level of horror that I was thrown in with the previous game I finished, but it sure does add to the distinct stress that's a part of treading the waters of Rapture. It's not the type of horror that makes you jump out of your seat. Instead, it lingers, an unsettling presence bringing you down as you explore the ruined corridors and listen to the whispers of the splicers. You don't know if you're in a fever dream or a nightmare. And, honestly, it could be both. And that's the magic of Bioshock. It makes the walls feel like they're closing in, but you keep on going, drawn in by the mystery, the dread, and, the parts that you come across step by step. I guess that was the impact this game had in a time that no other shooter dared to tell a story filled to the brim with philosophical undertones that stood the test of time. And speaking of impact, you'll have a big one if you do the same. So, would you kindly like and subscribe the video? That'll mean a lot. And so does the legacy this game apparently had over the course of its 17 years of existence. As I began the video by inheriting the context this game had on release, it is important that we learn to tangle with the roots of any media we consume. Comparison is indeed the main source of unhappiness, as they say. It is so easy to take all the innovations in games like Bioshock introduced to the world at the time for granted, and we never really got past at downplaying literally anything for cheap reactions. I know that was my experience from start to finish, because experiencing the rich world building, audio-visual storytelling masterclass, and the brass tacks way to play video games that doesn't hold your hand at all made me appreciate the game mechanics we're oh so used by now. I see this as a requirement from the older classics that beg you to put on your shoes as if you're trying the game out when it's still new to the public eye. It makes sense to me that the concept of give and take applies to art that is superseded by the rapidly innovating video games industry. Without this ability and concept from the consumer, it's so easy for us to just complain, expecting each hallmark concept we have now to be present before it was normalized. Bioshock is a product of its time, where modern gaming is just being molded into what we know today, filled with many risks, trial and errors, from developers looking to take the ball of your recognition from everybody. Being someone that can be considered within the old guard of gamers and with the new, as of making this video, it's so easy for me to acknowledge how much of a phrase like the game's storytelling through audio logs are, or the focused morality system being a new concept to be explored, while at the same time being aware that these are basic features already in the game. I find it important to emphasize that these older games' true potential is the end user's understanding and patience to not make their impact at the time known by the future generations, as it would be a tragedy to hear the new folk call games like Half-Life 2 and Bioshock boring. Now that's my 2 cents about the state of Bioshock in the year 2024. Now, would you kindly get yourself down in the depths of Rapture and experience this wonderfully crafted game, which will definitely get another spiritual successor down the road, as the mind behind it is in the works of another FPS epic. Before you get down there, you thought I forgot about warning you about the remastered version? Well, now I have a tendency to blurt out everything that I find unpleasant, and within my time experiencing Rapture's offerings, I've been constantly crashing in the supposed remastered versions. It's been a hot minute since there were any updates to save you some time and sanity. When you buy the collection, you'll be getting the base and remastered versions of both games. Pick the base version and play it without the hassle of crashes and whatnot. And in addition, I've run the game with a few mods with the reshade and texture pack linked below if you want the same result in the latter part of the video. Now, I guess that's the cue for me to say goodbye, so stay awesome people, and
Now would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch? It's time to finish this.